Just as the Queen Mother had wanted, after her death, Birkhall passed to Charles. But it was a home stuck in a time warp. It felt like it did when she moved in the 1950s.
It did need some updating. The heating and the plumbing especially was a little bit run down.
Charles doesn't do anything by halves, and so he set about refurbishing it.
But he didn't have to do it alone. By the time the Queen Mother died, Charles and Camilla's relationship was out in the open, and she was heavily involved with the remodel of Birkhall.
Charles and Camilla were certainly trying to put both of their stamp on this home. This is probably the closest thing to a marital home that they will ever have.
Birkhall is too private a residence for it to be easy to see inside. But you can get a real sense of what it may be like from Clarence House, Charles's home in London, where he used the same interior designer, Robert Keim.
Robert Keim's style was quite traditional, so lots of antique furniture, things like that. But also, he brought in some Middle Eastern influences as well, rugs and furniture from that part of the world, so fused the two things together.
Most importantly, Charles and Camilla have preserved the memory of his beloved grandmother.
He kept the Queen Mother's barometer hanging up that guests used to check what the weather was like before they went outside. And her coats are still hanging up on a hook by the door as well, which was really sweet.
So it's a timepiece to his grandmother, but it's modernised and incredibly comfortable.
I think the interior designer found it a bit frustrating that he said, we've really got to replace these curtains. And so Charles was saying, yes, absolutely, but I want them to be exactly the same pattern. So he'd have to do that. But he spruced it up and made it a bit more modern.
There's just one change Charles has made that his grandmother might frown upon.
He kept those 8 grandfather clocks in the dining room, but he set them all to the same time, so it didn't drive everybody as bonkers as it had done before.
Almost immediately after the works were finished, Birkhall became a special place for Charles and Camilla. Whenever possible, they make the 500-mile journey north from London to their remote little lodge. It's a chance to really escape. The closest town is Ballater, and that's home to less than 2,000 people.
I think when they land at Birkhall, it's a case of really, whew, here we are. We're going to enjoy one another's company, and we're going to walk, and we're going to sit, and we're going to read, and we're going to have a little drink, and we're going to just be together. And I think it is one of their very favourite places to be.
I think he likes that whole idea that even though the rest of the family might be at Balmoral, he could still escape to somewhere like Birkhall and just have that wonderful space for him and Camilla.
In 2005, Camilla even revealed that Charles had proposed at Birkhall.
Camilla sported a whopping diamond upon her finger, and she was clearly on a high.
I'm just coming down to earth.
Now, we don't know whether Charles went down on one knee, but he is a very traditional man, so I would expect that he may have done, he was a bit younger then, 20 years ago, so he proposed to Camilla and asked her to marry him, and she said, of course, why would I not say anything else?
And just a few months later, following what by now seems to be family tradition, Birkhall is also where they spent their honeymoon.
It's the perfect place to have lots of romantic walks around the grounds, candlelit dinners, roaring fires. It's a place where they can really, really relax.
They are romantic, and he's always looking for little ways to make her happy. He'll pick some lovely flowers from the garden at Birkhall and put them on her desk where she works, or he'll put something, by her bed, in her bedroom, little posy of flowers that he thinks she might like. Yeah, they are still very sweet.
But the UK was about to face another crisis. And Birkhall would once again find itself in the role of royal protector. In 2020, the coronavirus pandemic took hold of the world, and Charles tested positive.
It was pretty devastating to hear that Charles had COVID. This was the very start of the pandemic. We'd had all sorts of warnings. Lockdown was just beginning. It was scary times.
I mean, there were real fears within the royal family and the establishment that Charles was going to die.
It was fortunate for Charles and Camilla that when he was diagnosed with COVID, they were up at Birkhall. So if you've got to quarantine somewhere, you know, be in your favourite home.
Luckily, the then Prince of Wales was okay. And the pandemic actually gave the public a surprising insight into what it's like inside Birkhall.
Like everybody else at that time, once Charles had recovered, he was doing much of his work through video calls.
The creation of this hospital is the result of an extraordinary partnership, create a centre on a scale that has never been seen before.
And Camilla was doing that as well, so it gave us a bit of a sneak peek into what Birkhall looked like.
We saw Camilla sitting at her desk, and it seems her study is quite light and airy and bright, with, you know, the fresh flowers and bookcase behind her. Charles is a little more businesslike, perhaps, but delightfully cluttered, I suppose, with photographs everywhere of the family and books.
Charles's real labour of love at the property, however, has always been the gardens. And it's easy to see why. Building on the work started by his beloved grandmother, Charles has poured his heart into enhancing and expanding this stunning space.
The colour palette has quietened down a bit from Queen Mother's more flowery style, but it's very much a sort of Scottish garden, benefiting from the mist and the rain.
The topiary was carved into the two ciphers of the Queen, Elizabeth Regina, with CP, Prince Charles, Charles Princeps. And I think that's actually rather charming, actually, that he had his sort of topiary cipher alongside his mother's.
I think it's lovely to just know that, you know, King Charles will walk around with his little black book of knowing where, you know, which plant's gone in where, the selection of heirloom vegetables that he's chosen. And some of those will probably be plants that the Queen Mother would have grown as well, because it then still has that lovely story and those memories, which is really important for him.
And Charles has thrown himself into making the grounds as sustainable and environmentally friendly as possible.
Everything is done on organic principles, so no pesticides, no herbicides. It's all done with fresh and manure, which of course might be a little bit stinky at times, but it's the best way of doing organic gardening.
And of course, the vegetable gardens are very important to him, and they grow all sorts of food that they're going to eat. And if it doesn't come from Birkhall, then it's probably going to come from Highgrove, because Charles does like his properly sourced and organic food.
He's come up with a novel way of managing the pests, too. In 2005, Charles introduced 7 Indian runner ducks like these to the Birkhall garden.
They run around and they just eat up all the things like slugs, all the nasty pests as well that might be on leaves. And I just think it's beautiful. I think it's a lovely, playful way of introducing sort of fun into a garden.